Good morning, everyone. Pretty excited about the content we're going to cover this morning. Just as a preface, my son, Ethan, and I are going to do a half Ironman in Oceanside. We're leaving tonight, and we're going to we've been training for this half Ironman for a long time. It's my son's first one. I think I've done, around 15 of these, but I'm excited to do it with my son. Likewise, one of my best friends, Jeff Kirk, is doing it with his son that's a senior at Mountain View here locally, and his name is Noah, and I've got to give him a shout out. His name is actually Noah Spencer, so we've got an awesome name. Noah was actually at my house at 11 o'clock last night and wanting a race strategy from me, and I'm actually not very good as far as like putting these thoughts together in my mind to put them into words, and so I've got another one of my best friends, Tory Adair, on the line, and he is basically my wingman, my coach, and my strategist, and has been doing all these Ironmans for all these years. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to lay out a strategy for those competing in the half Ironman this weekend in Oceanside, to send this recording out to them, and likewise for anyone to use in the future. So without further ado, Tory, I appreciate your help today, and he's going to be speaking a majority of the time and going over this strategy from basically going to bed to waking up the morning of an Ironman. So go ahead, Tory. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't focus much on sleeping the night before, that type of thing, so we'll ignore that, and I'll start right off with morning, race day morning, when you're there on site, setting things up. So you're setting up your transition station and trying to get ready for the swim. I found that there's three things that help me most in the swim. One is warming up before the swim. When you've got a long race ahead of you, maybe 5-6 hours for a half Ironman, it kind of seems a little bit obnoxious to actually warm up. But I've noticed, and especially it seems to be affected me as I've gotten older, when I start a race with all the excitement, my heart rate really spikes, especially in the water, the triathlon. And sometimes that takes quite a long time to come down and settle in. And, there's limited oxygen when your face is in the water for most of your stroke. And so it's hard to kind of recover when you're in the water. So I've learned that when I do these little 3 warm-ups, like 3 jogs where I get my heart rate up to about 145 and let it come down to, say, 120, get it back up again 3 times, when I get in the water and start swimming and slow down, I find that my heart rate comes down rather quickly. Just for some reason, that's worked for me. I know it's worked for other people. I've seen it, read about it in different triathlon posts. So it's a regular part of my preparation before the swim. Get my heart rate up 3 times, over 145, let it come down. Usually I have a watch on at the time so I can tell. And then I feel like when I can enjoy the excitement. When I start to swim, I start at whatever pace I want to, which is usually faster than I should. I get out in the water and I get going, and then I start feeling that heart rate high and the lack of oxygen. I try to slow down, focus on my breathing, and start looking around me and see who's passing me and what speed I'm doing. Try to find somebody who's passing me rather slowly, and then my second most important part of the swim comes in, and that's trying to draft. I've noticed most of the water is not very clear. Hawaii is very clear. Some of Florida races I've done have been very clear, but places like Tempe Town Lake and even the Oceanside are not clear. They're very dark water, oftentimes kind of overcast mornings, and there's very little being able to see someone's feet and draft off of them. So I try to draft off their hip. It was something taught to me by a swim coach who's much better than me. And I pick only the side that I prefer to breathe on. Some people do, in their swim training, they've got used to bilateral breathing. Just a quick comment, when it comes to racing, I think bilateral breathing is ridiculous. It's there for 2 reasons in swim training. That's 1, to teach your body to be more efficient with its oxygen usage, and 2, to have equal muscle development on both sides of your neck and shoulders and lats, because you change your body position just a little bit when you breathe. When you race, you don't have to worry about either one of those. You want all the oxygen you can get, and you're not worried about muscle development being uneven. So pick your favorite side to breathe. Breathe every stroke on that side, and pick someone who's passing you on that side and look to move on to their hip. And try to pick someone if you can. It looks like they've got a really smooth stroke and they're a very experienced swimmer, because they're more likely to swim straight, and you want to side off of them so you don't have to lift your head as often to the side. The more you lift your head, the more your hips sink, the more your legs drag, and you lose, it's like sitting up tall on a bike when you're going 30 miles an hour. You lose a lot of speed, air resistance. So number 1, warm up. Number 2, drafting. Number 3, once I found somebody and I settled in on their hip, I just focused on my breathing. Nice deep breaths when I turn my head, smooth exhale after. And when I've done that for a few minutes, I almost get into a little bit of a meditative state. And my heart rate, I focus on my heart rate coming down and just think I'm just going to be out here for 20 minutes just swimming away. Also, I didn't mention one thing. In racing, I try not to kick a lot. It uses you get about 30% of the propulsion from kicking, but use about 50% of the oxygen. So you want to limit your kicking, maybe just enough to balance your body. Maybe kick a little bit when you're trying to jump on someone's feet or hip or pass somebody or go around a buoy. But for the most part, and that's important, you train that before the race day. You want to minimize your kicking so that you're using less oxygen, saving your legs for later. Okay, sorry. I'll throw that in there for just a little.
Yeah.
That helps me. All right, so that's pretty much the swim. You've controlled your breathing. One other thing to be careful for is sometimes once you get your heart rate down and you're breathing nice and smooth and you're drafting off of somebody's hip and you're only lifting your head every 10 strokes or less and to check on make sure you're swimming straight, and you've got all that down and your heart rate goes up, sometimes you feel like you're not racing hard enough. And I've done this a number of times where I've left somebody. I had a nice setup and I've pulled away from them and tried to catch somebody faster going by and pick up the pace, only to lose that person later and then have the other one that I left catch up to me and think, man, I wasted all that energy and I could have just stayed at the same pace and I was already settled in. So I remind myself that if I come out of the water nice and fresh, I can transition faster. My mind's clearer for transition. And so my personal belief that you can make up a minute in transition just by having a clear mind, by having your heart rate be a little bit lower and thinking through. So when I get down to the last maybe quarter of the swim, I start thinking about reviewing the transition in my mind. And even in the last couple hundred yards, I may pick up the pace a little bit once I've reviewed that transition a couple times and try to pass just a couple people to the end just because I know I'm going to, in transition, going to be able to get my heart rate back down again. Okay, so swim's over. Transition, you thought through it, you planned it, you saved a couple minutes because you jogged nice and smoothly through, you found your bike quickly, you got your stuff on, got jumped on your bike, now you're heading out. The one thing on the rookie mistakes I think people make on the bike that's important for their plan, obviously, is having a nutrition plan and hydration. Your drinks, your food, your supply, and when you're going to eat them. It's boring stuff, but it's key. You're going to be able, your stomach's going to be able to absorb better at a lower heart rate, and cycling is a slightly lower heart rate than running. And so you want to take on the calories to make up for the swim that you haven't been, a little bit. Keep up on the bike as much as you can and be set up for the run when your body's not going to absorb a little more because your heart rate's going to go up a bit on the run. So try to hydrate and take that nutrition. That's different for everybody as far as what they take and what works. So something you kind of have to plan on. I won't tell them how many calories, there's formulas out there, and how much hydration, there's formulas out there for that. They can look at that. But come up with a plan for your water bottles and your aid station and what you're going to take and follow that. The one other rookie mistake I think people make on the bike besides the nutrition and hydration is climbing a hill too fast. And obviously cyclists and triathletes use power meters because on a race day you're excited and your heart rate can be higher. You may actually be able to handle more than you would normally. So it's nice. If you don't have a power meter, though, and you do have heart rate, you may want to set a goal for that and say, hey, I can't go over 145 beats per minute when climbing. Or maybe 150 is your max out. If you're up at 170, 175, you're building lactic acid. It's going to hurt you later in the race. It's hard to do sometimes because people just get excited and they go harder up the hills than they really should, and you'd hate to be passed, But controlling your power output or your heart rate on hills, minimizing that will lead more leg power and more for later. All right, so you've hydrated, you've followed your nutritional plan, you held back on the hills, and you've been consistent to the bike. Now you're off, you transitioned well for the run, and you're heading out on the run. It's very important to pace yourself very well the first half of the run. You can actually make more mistakes in your nutrition and your pacing in the second half and make up for that. But if you do it in the first half, it's going to hurt you in a second. So I like to, on the run, I think it's a little bit more predictable. The heart rate is more useful. And so I pick a heart rate. So for me, it's usually about 155, and I can't go over 155. If I get up to 150, above 155, it's not coming down, I'll stop and walk, whether it's through an aid station, whatever, just let my heart rate come down a little bit. I don't feel any guilt about walking because it's not about my performance. I don't need to walk. I'm not wimping out to walk. I'm walking because I'm bringing that heart rate back down because I'm in the first half of the run, and I'm making sure I save enough for the second half of the run. Now I've gotten through the first half of the run. I've controlled my heart rate. I've been taking in nutrition and hydration at aid stations, each and every one. I've kept my temperature down, put ice in my hat, whatever I needed to do, down my shorts, whatever. So my body temperature stayed down. I'm doing okay. Now I'm on the second half of the run. I can start to pick it up a little bit. I can move my heart rate to 160 if I want. I can start taking on a little bit less at the aid stations. It takes time for nutrition to be digesting, to go through your stomach and get into your intestines and into your bloodstream and into the muscles. And so that, there's that delay that's 30 minutes to an hour and a half to kind of clear out. So I don't need a full stomach the whole time. So I start going a little bit easier on my nutrition in the second half of the run for a half Ironman anyway. And by the time I'm 2/3, 3/4 through it, I can start to pick up that heart a little bit more and take in a little bit less hydration. I probably do a little bit more on the ice because it's mid-afternoon right now, and I focus more on body heat and how I feel for my core temperature. And then if I'm down to the last 5K, I always tell myself in the last 5K that it's time for a pain. If I don't have some, if I don't feel some serious pain in the race, I don't feel like I've left it all out there. And so I purposely try to, I want to be uncomfortable in that last third. I want to feel like I've left it all out. And I tell myself it's only a 5K. I've only got 3 miles left. I won't feel like I left it all out there if I don't feel. So I push for whatever I'm worth, and sometimes I skip the last couple of aid stations because I still have enough in my stomach that's going through the system that I don't have to have more. That might not be true if I'm talk about cramping just a second, and I think we're about done.
Yeah.
But, so I get through the run and make it uncomfortable at the end. Let's just cover a couple things: cramping, caffeine, aspirin, and ibuprofen. Everybody's different as to what their stomach can handle, and aspirin and ibuprofen and how it affects your heart. Aspirin can thin the blood a little bit. Sometimes that can be helpful. For me, just to be safe, I'm never more than 1 ibuprofen the first half of the run, 1 the second half of the run, and the same 1 aspirin of each. So I try to limit, 1 ibuprofen, 1 aspirin first half, 1 of each. And so it does just a little bit of pain killing, kind of keeps that blood a little bit thinner and flowing through. I feel like it's a little helpful, but I know some doctors say you don't take during high exercise. I know other people take 3 or 4 and seem to be okay, but I kind of limit it to those. Caffeine, you don't want caffeine too early before the race. Caffeine is one of the only legal performance improvement. It does have a little bit of pain-killing effect, and it does help prime the heart rate, but it does dehydrate you. And so not that I try to limit it not in the morning before, but maybe right before the race starts. If I feel like it's a little bit longer, or I save it till after the swim and after the bike. I don't feel like I need a lot of encouragement on the bike. I may be late in the bike, and then just save it for the run. And it's a bit of a performance boost and enhancement, and a little bit of a mood enhancer too. I've seen caffeine ruin people's races too much, and so I try to limit that under 400 milligrams, just my personal limit. Different people have different tolerances for that. Also, cramping. Cramping can be a serious thing. It has to do with more than just hydration, though it helps to take on the run. I take salt pills. I start when I transition, put my shoes on to run. I also have obviously electrolytes in my drinks on the bike, but I up that up for the run. And I usually carry a pickle juice that I take when I first start the run, and I take something called a hot shot, which has cayenne pepper and other things in it. They have a little bit different effect each, and both work for me. So I buy those pickle juice in little jars, and those are hot shots. And I'll do 1 at the beginning of the run and 1 at the mid part of the run. I take my 1 aspirin, 1 ibuprofen with those 2. And that's been a solution that's helped me keep from cramping, even in very hot races. But I used to have a lot of cramping problems when I first started. And if I forget that and do a rookie mistake, but people can test their own stuff, whatever, but it does help to have a strategy for cramping. Also cramping because you just do with your range of motion. And so sometimes you have to limit for hamstring cramps, have to limit your stride. For quad cramps, you may change your stride just a little bit where you're landing in the back of the foot instead of the center, or use your quads just a little bit differently, and that can help you get through those last few miles if you're starting to cramp. Anyway, I think we're about out of 15 minutes, and hopefully you covered some of the basics, and you can take advantage of Spencer and mine's experience, even though we're not the greatest athletes, and make the most of your race.
Yes, that's cool. Tory, thank you so much for your time. Very valued. Appreciate you as a friend, as a training partner. And if you guys are listening, if you've never done an Ironman before and you have a goal of doing that, so feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to help you accomplish that. Tory and I are essentially on the road every single morning together before the sun comes up, training for these Ironmans. And it's not about Ironman. It's about just maintaining a level of fitness. And it's not even that I love doing that and running and riding my bike. It's just I love the results of it and the health benefits. And it's also good to go free your mind. I talk a lot about being proactive versus reactive in life. And it's the only time that I'm really not being reactive is in the morning without my phone and on the road and doing something that I enjoy in proactivity. So appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Tory, appreciate you. Have a great day at work. Thanks, bud.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, we'll see you. Bye.